Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, our live demonstration, CyberSaint crosswalking CIS Top 18 to AICPA, or more commonly, the SOC 2 controls. My name is Ethan Bresnahan. I'm the marketing director here at CyberSaint, and today I'm excited to be joined by CyberSaint VP of Solutions Architecture, Steve Torino, and Senior Sales Engineer, Michael Blumrich. We're so glad that you can join us for today's webinar, and with that, I will hand things off to Steve.
Hi, my name is Steve Torino, and I'm Vice President of Solution Architecture here at CyberSaint. I want to thank you for attending this webinar and also provide some background information before we jump into a demonstration of the solution. Crosswalking has been a longstanding challenge in the industry. The reality is that organizations are subject to more than one cybersecurity framework or standard of practice, depending on things like the jurisdictions where they do business, the industries in which they participate, and the types of customers with whom they wish to do business. Most of these standards are covering domains and controls that overlap, at least to some extent. And in theory, this overlap should make things easier to the extent that we can kind of be sure we comply with the control from one framework. We should be able to map it to controls from another framework and know that we've satisfied that requirement as well. In practice, it's a bit more complicated. Although the controls across two or more frameworks may cover similar content, they often have subtle differences. So for example, let's take vulnerability scanning as an example. A framework like NIST might allow for the frequency of vulnerability scanning to be customized to an organization-defined frequency, whereas the corresponding control from another framework may specify the frequency at which vulnerability scans are to be run, so something like once a week or once a month. Yes, those controls do map to each other, but the subtle difference in frequency makes them not an exact match. Another example could be control inheritance. So most of us by now are probably using some cloud services to operate our business. One of the benefits that comes with that is inheriting certain security controls, such as server patching and an infrastructure as a service model, for example. However, there are other controls for which a shared accountability model applies. In other words, we might inherit part of a control from a CSP, but still have to demonstrate requirements around things like maybe access controller configurations in-house. So what's really critical here is to understand the gap between any two frameworks. And organizations have taken various approaches to finding these gaps or doing crosswalks in order to make their lives easier, because as anybody who's done these exercises knows, it can be really challenging and time-consuming. Larger, more complex organizations might roll out something like a large common controls framework, or basically a superset of sorts that can be manually applied across dozens or hundreds of frameworks even. And others might try a method like to rely on the limited set of publicly available crosswalks that are published by authoritative sources like CIS, AICPA, even the informative references to the CSF from NIST. Unfortunately, this is very limited and not available for most frameworks at all. And yet others might work with consultants, bring consultants in and have an engagement to do the crosswalking that they need. What you're going to see today is a demonstration of CyberSaint's unique approach to crosswalking. So whether it's an example of how we can leverage pre-published templates to automate those industry accepted mappings just at the click of a button, or how to use our patented natural language processing technology to create your own templates from any framework to any other framework by identifying control associations with AI provided confidence levels, you're going to see a real world solution that's been custom built to automate the manual and time consuming process of crosswalking controls across frameworks. I hope you enjoy the demo.
In order to complete a crosswalk within the CyberStrong platform, we're first going to go to the administration area by clicking on administration in the upper right-hand corner of the page. From here, you'll be taken by default to the manage assessments area, and this is where you'll manage the crosswalking process. To get things started, we first need to identify the assessment we'll be crosswalking from. In this case, I'll be crosswalking from CIS Top 18 with subcontrols. And then to get things started, I will go to the actions column and click on the crosswalk assessment icon. Next, I'm going to choose the framework that I'm going to be crosswalking into. In this case, I'll be going and crosswalking into the AICPA Trust Services, also known as kind of your SOC 2 type control set. So I'll click on the AICPA box, and this is going to take me to the apply template page. This is optional. So if you have a custom template, it will be available here. I can choose mappings over 80% or 90%. This will be based on the confidence score generated by our natural language processing models that we have in place. Or if I'm wanting to go control by control, leverage the NLP model confidence scores and make my selections accordingly, I can apply the empty template. So from here, again, I can go control by control if I want to, or I can hit that easy button of add top mappings for each control. Next, I can go and just do a quick review to see where those mappings start to occur. I can add additional mappings if I so choose, or I can go straight to my next and final step. In this case, I'm going to provide a name for the assessment and then make a selection of whether or not I want the assessment synced. What this means is if I do sync the assessments, what this means is if I make a change at the parent level, the change will be rolled down to the child assessment automatically. In this case, I'm going to keep it unsynced, but I will show you what a synced assessment looks like momentarily. Going to go ahead and submit this. And now we have a net new assessment created with those mappings brought in. Between the confidence score as well as the mappings and the crosswalk history, this process is very auditable. You can see the CIS controls that directly map into the SOC 2 control here. And again, I have the ability to make changes at the child level at will. The only difference between this and a synced assessment is when it comes to the child level and what changes can be made. So if I go to a synced assessment, I'll show you what I mean. So in this case, I can't make changes right away. I can do that if I just click unsync control to edit. But the synced crosswalk is really meant for those organizations that are focusing on kind of that parent control set. And they just need to kind of roll it down into additional child assessments. So if I make this change here from minimally to fully, these changes automatically roll down to the child level, allowing for the really assessing once and applying to many methodology. Then this saves a lot of time and effort and adds increased efficiency and effectiveness when assessing against multiple frameworks within your organization.
Thank you everyone for attending today's webinar. As always, if you're interested in learning more about CyberSaint's AI-backed crosswalking capabilities, please feel free to reach out info@cybersaint.io or visit us at cybersaint.io. We'll see you soon.